Hey, welcome back, guys. Today we're going to be talking about benchmark number 16. So today we're going to be on benchmark 16, and that benchmark is says I can graph square root functions, and it's basically the same as what we were doing before we left. So we're going to take a look at what we did before we left to go on break. I know y'all are like, oh, day we gotta do work on first day. Yes, you gotta do work on first day. So let's get to work. All right, so before we left for break, this is what we were confronted with. We were confronted with the task of graphing quadratic equations. Um, so I'm about to review that real quick because benchmark 16, graphing square root functions, is about the same process. All right, so let's review. First things first, we had to realize if it's in vertex or standard form. This one right here, we got this. This is vertex form. And so we automatically know where my vertex is, which is this point right here. Is going to be -2, -4. This is the x value of my vertex, which we call h. This is my y value of my vertex, which we call k. So you got h and k there. All right. So I automatically know that this is supposed to be a minus, but since it's a plus, that's how I ended up with a -2 there. Once you do that, we can go ahead and figure out our table so we can do our graph. Um, so my table, you got x, you got y. You pick the x's. Um, I like to choose 5 of them. And so in the middle, we're going to put our vertex. And then I'm going to pick 2 to the left, 2 there smaller, 2 there bigger. So you get -1, 0. You get -3, -4. Now, in order to fill out the rest of it, I take these numbers, plug it in here. Whatever number I get out is what's going to be there. So if I take -4, I end up with -4 plus 2 squared minus 4. And so this turns out to be -2 squared, which is 4 minus 4, which turns out to be 0. Do the same thing for -3. You end up with -3 plus 2 squared minus 4. Well, that's -1 squared. 1 minus 4 turns out to be -3. I know these two are just going to turn out to be the same. So this is -3. This one's going to be 0. Now I have my graph. I can go ahead and graph it. This is what we were doing before. Now I can go ahead and graph it. I know I got the point -2, -4. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, which is my vertex. I got the point -4, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That stays right there. I got -3, -3. So 1, 2, 3. Go down 1, 2, 3. Then I got -1, -3, and then 0, 0. So my parabola is going to look something like this. And once I do that, I can fill out the rest of this. We have a minimum value down here, and my minimum value is going to be my y here, which is -4. On what interval is the function increasing? Well, it starts going up here, so I know it's going to start at my x value, which is -2, and then it goes on to positive infinity. And so therefore, it has to come from -infinity to -2 to be decreasing. Domain is always the same, -infinity to positive infinity. Range is my y value, so I start with my lowest one since it's a minimum. My lowest y value is going to be -4, and it's included, so you got to put the square bracket. Then it goes on to positive infinity. X-intercept is where it crosses the x-axis. This right here is my x-axis. So where does it hit? It hits at the point where y is 0. So -4 and 0. So my x-intercepts are -4 and 0. Notice it's not a point, and I didn't write it as a point. Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. Well, crosses the y-axis at the point 0. Axis of symmetry is just the x value of my vertex. So therefore, my axis of symmetry is x is equal to the x value of my vertex, which is -2. How does the graph differ from the parent function? Well, let's go ahead and draw the parent function. The parent function starts at 0, 0. It goes up to -1, 1, 1, 1, and then it goes to 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so this is my parent function. This is what all quadratics start out as. And what do we do to it? Do we move it left and right, up or down? Well, we know this tells me I moved it to the left because it's negative. So I went left by the value of 2. And then I went down by the value of 4. The only other things we would have to say is if it was flipped or if it was stretched or shrink, or but neither one of those happened because there was no number A out here in front of the original. So if you look at the original, there's no number out here, so therefore we didn't have to do that. And that's where we left off before break. Now we're going to do the same exact thing, except for instead of having x squared, we're going to have the square root of x. Alright, so now let's look at graphing the parent function. The parent function for square root is y is equal to square root of x. That's going to be our parent function. Before we had a parent function of y is equal to x squared. Alright, but now we're moving from this to this. It's a whole new graph and function there. So the way we graphed this one was we made a table, an XY table. Well, we're going to do the same exact thing to do this one. We're going to make an XY table. All right. Because I know this is square root and a lot of numbers are going to get decimals, I'm going to pick some numbers that aren't going to give me decimals to do this one. What numbers can I not put in here is the key. Numbers that we can't put in here are negative. We can't put any negative x's. All right, so no negative x values. And the reason we know that is because when we started talking about I, if we wanted to take the square root of -25, this is imaginary, and we would have to take an I out, and therefore it will not fit on our graph because this is an imaginary number. So if it's negative on the inside of there, it's imaginary. We can't graph it unless we use the imaginary number plane. So no negative numbers. So we can pick 0 because I know the square root of 0 is just 0. And I pick 1. Well, the square root of 1 is 1. Square root of 2 is a decimal, so I'm not going to use that. Square root of 3 is a decimal. I'm not going to use that. Square root of 4, though, I know it's 2. All right, we want to pick a couple more, 2 more. And we want to pick numbers that we know what the square root of it is. And then so square root, so we'll pick the square root of 9, which we know is 3. And then the next one would be 16, which we know is 4. All right, we might not go that far, but at least we have our table. So now let's go ahead and graph the parent function. So I have my table. Now I'm going to go ahead and graph it. So this is the graph of y equals square root of x, which is what everything that we do is based around. And so now we're just going to graph 0, 0. We're going to go over to 1, 1. Got to go over to 4, 2. We got to go over to 9, 3. And then we don't have 16, but that's all right. We don't have to graph that far. So now my parent function looks like this. All right. It doesn't go below 0. It just stays there. That's my parent function for y equals square root of x. So everything we do for this benchmark is going to be centered around this.